On creating a 3D crate with Blender, Quixel, and Photoshop, and the Unity game engine. If this is the first video you've found and you want to learn along, please go back to video number 1 in this series and work your way from there. But if you have been following along, welcome back. If the crate looks a little bit different, it's because I had some technical difficulties and had to load some stuff and then was playing with some settings. So this is what we have, very similar to what we had previously. So in this video, we are actually going to, I'm in the section of Quixel called Ddo, but we are actually going to get out of Ddo and close our Ddo project. So I'm going to hit yes. And we are going to open up another part of Quixel called Ndo. Ndo is very similar to Ddo, except it works with the manipulation of normal maps. So we're going to say goodbye to 3Do as well right now because it's just about to take up screen space, so we're going to get rid of it. And ignore this. I have this open for something else. Well, I have it open for this, but we're going to use it in a second. This is our UV from the previous several videos ago. So the Ndo interface is this little window here, and it has two different buttons. So I'm opening it when there's already an open image up, and what this button says is, do you want to convert the selection to a normal? I don't, so I'm going to ignore this. But if you're opening this up into a blank Photoshop where nothing is open, it'll say create new project. But there's also create new project at the bottom here. So I'm going to create a new Ndo document. So we are going to load, like Ddo, we can load our mesh and our normal map. So I'm going to load my mesh, and there's a previous Ndo project. So we're going to go to exports, load my mesh, and then I'm going to load bake normal. And I want to go to where my texture project was before, so there's create texture, and there's my normal that was generated by Ddo. So I'm going to open that up, and there it is. And now we can create a new project. So there it is so far, which doesn't look like a whole lot, but I'm going to open up 3Do, and this will show me an untextured version, or a version of the crate with just normal maps. No shading, no albedo or color maps, or diffuse maps depending on your terminology, no gloss or specularity, just the normals. So again, normals are the type of file that make a 3D model, that give a 3D model surface texture without actually being geometry itself. So we don't have to model all these bits of wood grain and cracks and things like that, or these dents in the metal. We can just put on a normal map, which looks like this psychedelic image right here, this sort of crazy purple and blue psychedelic image, and that gets converted into surface detail. So Ndo lets us manipulate these surface details using Photoshop's internal tools, and that's what this video is going to be about. It's going to be about how to use Photoshop's features to create normals with Ndo. So a quick tour of Photoshop. I'm going to close 3Do again because it takes up a lot of screen space. So here we have our Photoshop interface. You're going to notice I have a few windows open. So if I go up to Window at the top, I have the Navigator open. I'm a big fan. That's not always open by default. I'm a big fan of it because it lets me zoom in easily, which can also be accomplished with Control and either the plus or minus key. I guess equals or minus. But I also like this because when I am zoomed in, I can move this red square around, and that helps me pan quickly. So I like having the Navigator open. A few important things in Photoshop if you've never used it before. The tool palette is over here on the left. The layer window is over here on the right. And layers is very important because this is going to be how we work with the different additions we're going to make to the normal map. And then we'll see other features as we go through them. So if I go into the Undo window and I see this tab that says Layer 0, if I click the up arrow next to Layer 0, it says Select Parent Group, and we move over here, you'll see that if we're looking at our whole project, there is a folder that says Normal, and then under that there is a Layer 0. Well, if we look at our Photoshop Layers window, you'll see the same thing, Normal folder, a folder called Normal. It is a pretty average folder, but yeah, a folder called Normal, and then this little conversion icon, and then here's our Layer 0. There's Layer 0. So we have it selected, it popped up, said, hey, I'm here. But that's our base layer for our normal that we already have. So we want to create a new set of layers to work with some of Undo's features. So let's do this. Let's try this from a couple of different ways so that you can get used to the different ways to work in Undo. So right now I'm going to go over to my Photoshop Layers window, and with Layer 0 selected, I'm going to go down to the bottom of the layer window to this thing that looks like a Post-it note next to the garbage can, and I'm going to click to create a new layer. That is going to create a brand new layer, and it's going to ask us, do you want to convert to normal? Now, why it chooses one marker over another, it depends on the content of the layer. This is just a blank layer. So it's going to go to this pretty standard squiggly thing here. We don't care about that yet. The thing we actually do care about right now is we want to be able to paint and work on this project. So let me show you the basics of how Undo works, and then I'm going to show you how we can make this work for us so that we can work on the UVs we exported earlier, so that we can add details and know where they're going to go on the project. You're going to notice that while we know where the wood is and the metal is because of the way, we can see the wood texture here, the wood grain, and we can see the metal dents and scratches and everything. But we don't really know much else of how where some of our marks are going to appear on the model. So if I create a circle, and this will show you the basic Undo workflow. So let me create an elliptical shape. Now we'll know that this is going to cross over one of the wood areas. That's okay, we're not too worried about it. So this is going to, we have this selection up, and Undo responds accordingly. It's going to ask you, do you want to convert this selection to a normal? And we're on a new layer, so we're going to do that, because when we're on a new layer, who cares? So there we go. It's created this thing. We can change what the sides are like. If they're these sort of grooves, if they're inner stroke, outer stroke, things like that. Are they going to be indented or be a bevel outward? What does their curve look like? How deep is it? So we can do lots and lots of things with this. So we can move the sliders, and then if we look at our 3Do, we will see this big chunk taken out of, wait a minute, that's not quite straight. So see, there's a big chunk taken out here, taken out here, taken out there, taken out there. Now part of this is that I didn't put sides with sides when I made my own UV map, and that's partially my fault. But the other thing is, the problem is we place this this 3do piece here, or 3do, this shape into nDo without really knowing where it was. So I'm going to rectangle marquee tool delete. Cannot be deleted without merging the group. That's because it converted it to a normal map. So I'm actually going to go into my layer, and layer 1 is the one that I'm working in where I created the circle. Basically what it does is it creates an image, and then when you actually convert it to a normal, it creates the shades. If I turn these layers on and off, that's going to communicate the visual data that you specify through these sliders. It's going to create that as color, and that's how it creates a normal map. So I want to get rid of the entirety of layer 1, because layer 1 basically became a bunch of different fields of color, and that's how it creates a normal map. And just think how complicated knowing that would, having to execute that by hand would be. Usually normal maps are created through sculpting features, which we'll explore in later videos. It's also done by creating detailed 3D meshes and then rendering that geometry down to a normal map texture, which is then applied to a lower polygon mesh. There's lots of complicated ways to make normal maps, but this is a pretty overall simplistic one. So as you just saw, we just created a circle, and then boom, it was a circle. So we're going to create some indentations onto our crate using some of nDo's powerful tools. So I'm going to go to my UVs, and if you haven't opened it up, go to File, Open, and then open the image for the UVs that you exported. So I have mine, and I clicked Control, or I pressed Control and A. That selects everything in the document, every pixel in the document. And the reason I want to do this, I'm going to hit Control and C for copy. And now I'm going to go to my normal map, and I'm going to hit Control V. And then you'll notice that it's a little askew. It's not quite perfect, because you can see these areas where the wood is supposed to be. They're not quite over where the wood is in the image. So we're going to go to the top of our tool palette here, click the arrow with the little compass point on it, that's the move tool, and then we're going to reposition this. That's good. And this will appear inside the normal folder. We don't want it to be in the normal folder, so we're going to move it up in the layer window. We're going to click and drag it up out of the normal folder because we want it to be its own thing. We don't want it to be one of the normals. So if we go into our nDo, see, normal only contains layer 0, which is the base layer for the normal. So layer 1 is not even part of nDo's reckoning of our project, because this is going to be a visual guide for us. So to go back into our normal folder, let's create a new layer here. So if I go into the normal folder, and there you are in nDo, there's the whole normal folder. I'm going to create a new sculpt layer. So this does the same type of thing. It's a little more complex. Actually, we don't even need to do that, to be honest. If we just create a new layer in Photoshop inside of our normal folder. Okay, and let's use the brush tool here. So this is going to default to the brush tool, which if you hit B, brings up the brush tool. And I'm going to go in, zoom in a little bit, and I'm going to make a mark with my paintbrush. And when you paint normals in nDo, you want to use white. So I'm going to use white, and then it's going to have a hard brush. So I'm going to click that, All right, there it is. Now I can convert this to a normal. All right, and then I want this to go down. Let's go with that curvature. All right, so I hit 3 I hit the 3-do button. And let's see. Oh, and see, that's what having your UV on does. It's actually not part of the normal map. It's just a image placed on top. If we turn that layer off and we force reload 3-do, it should, there we go, it's off. Cool. Let's find it. There we go. We've got this like sort of bolt hole going on. If we want to get really fancy with this too, well, let's turn our thing back on. Let's put one of these elsewhere. So let's make another layer. Boom. You know, and then we can just add some painting here. Real easy. Okay, did we get them all? Gotta move some of these windows we have open around. Okay, cool. So it'll ask us, do we want to convert? Yes, we do. And we want down for the slant, and it will look like everything else. Oh, we missed a few. So let's boop, boop. You want to make sure you get all of them. And then again, we're working with all of Photoshop's tools, so we can, I just needed to erase one there because I goofed on it, but that's easy to fix. So we are going to convert that layer as well and slant it down like everything else. And now if we go to 3-do, we've got these cool looking bolt holes. On the corners of our model, and some of them are a little askew. They're not quite lined up. We can fix that later in Blender, actually, if you just change, oh, I missed one again, jeez. You know, we can change that in Blender later on by manipulating and moving around the UVs. So if you see there are ones that are glaringly mismatched, you can manipulate the UVs and realign things. So that's actually pretty neat. So the other thing we want to do is let's use another feature of this. So to, oops, what did I just do? There we go. Everybody's like, look how many files look how many tabs he has open. To save space, we can zip each of these. That's just going to simplify everything inside of these different layers. So I click on a layer and I click this zip icon, and it tightens everything up. So you can see, instead of, well, I don't know where that is. Let's see. Yeah. So instead of having all the different parts of the little round icon, all the little colors separated into different layers like we saw before, now it just converts everything into one little image layer. So that's pretty handy. Again, if we do see that things are misaligned, another option we have is, once we do have them zipped up, we can probably, we can still move and change where everything is. So, for example, this layer, if we then go into the marquee tool and move stuff around, now we can individually manipulate all parts of the image. That's, again, once you have it zipped up. And I'm trying to roughly have everything in the center. There you are. That's the one I missed. We're not too worried about that right now, though. This is just a tutorial. But, again, if you do find yourself in a situation where you do have a misaligned, your options are, you can change the UVs themselves in Blender and align things better, or you can, once you have them zipped up, you can use the marquee tool and move things around like in regular old Photoshop. So if I force, oops, did it again. Gotta stop having that open when I go into 3Do. We can reline stuff that way. All right, so that's pretty neat. So let's close those up. And now another thing that we can do, if we go back to our normal, is we can add something called a multi-normal. Multi-normal lets you use all of Photoshop's tools, but non-destructively, meaning once you have, when you make something inside of the multi-normal normal group, so if we look at what this just created, it created this folder here called normal group, and then all of these folders underneath it, and then it created this other layer. Anything inside this group is going to be done non-destructively, meaning that if I change if I change text, so if I make some text, so I'm going to get out of 3Do, I'm going to open up my normal. If I make some text in here, and I'm going to change it to 14, no, way too small, way too big. I'm going to make this say, I don't know, Tutorial Corporation. So you can see that it's instantly converted to a normal. The reason this matters is because previously we would have had to make our text and then convert it, but then we couldn't treat it like text anymore. Now it was suddenly this folder of normal stuff, like normal making stuff. Now when we do this, we can actually work in this and it'll convert it straight to this. Why do you not want to do this all the time? Well, it's a little it wastes or not wastes, but it's a little intense on the system's resources. If you're working with kind of a beefy computer, that's not a big deal, but here you never know. So use this sparingly, but that's what this does, is this instantly converts things and lets you manipulate them still in Photoshop. So if we had painted in this multi-normal thing, we wouldn't have had to worry about zipping all these circle shapes before manipulating them. But multi-normal lets you do all this stuff purely like Photoshop without having to zip. It doesn't convert it to anything. It's already done right away. So you actually might want to work just in multi-normal. That's up to you if you have a system that can handle that. But this can be a very handy tool for really working in this, like working in Photoshop. So I just created some text, Tutorial Corporation, and I did it inside my multi-normal, so it converted it straight to a normal. So I'm going to turn off my UV layer for once, and let's see what that did. And we know it converted it to a normal, but you know, it's nice to see it in the 3D. All right. So the last thing I want to do, and how much you buy into the, well, no, not quite the last thing. How much you buy into this is up to you. I think this, unless, you know, I've seen this work really well, and I've seen it be kind of weird. It might be a little weird on this model in particular, but there are times where you will be able to use this, and it will be very nice. But I'll also show you, where'd it go? There we go. I'll show you Endu Painter mode. So if we click Endu Painter mode, initializing 3D Painter. So this does what we did with the Dynamask editor, except in normals. So I have now I have all the same tools I had before. Controls are the same, so hold down B, hit E to turn on your eraser, B to turn on your brush, hold down right and move the mouse, B and the right mouse button to move the mouse and change brush size. And with this, so let's do this. Let's create I'm going to try to do this as best as possible. Ugh, yuck. E. No, E. All right, I'm going to erase, because that came out looking terrible. Right, that's okay. Why does 3D keep disappearing on me? Ooh. All right, and so let's see. 3D. Don't be shy, 3D. So we can use that, and then it creates a normal. All right, not so bad, but see, we have kind of a cool looking seam there. And that made it along there. So if you missed it, what I did, jeez. If you missed it, what I did was show mask, performance, fix seams, rendering mode. I used my brush tool. I click, hold down Shift, click. Oops, that was a little down Shift, click. And with this I can make, you know, seams and all kinds of stuff. The only problem I have, again, as you can see here, it's not 100% straight. So if you are painting along geometry, actually this is where this might come in handy. Hello? Come back. Ugh, this thing is such a jerk sometimes. Well, let's close paint mode. Sometimes paint mode gets a little unruly. Aha. So this is where this actually might come in handy, which is if we, sorry about this, it's not supposed to do this. Let's go back to undo painter mode. Alright, so there's my paint strokes. If I erase these, nope. If I erase these, this will be great, thanks. What I'm trying to show you here, so I used shift and click to make these seams, and I was trying to make them in straight lines, but it's actually kind of tough in this model in particular. That doesn't mean that you should be wary of doing this. There's plenty of situations where making them freehand can be very nice. In this one in particular, I wanted it to be a little neater, so thus it was screwing up a little bit. However, what we can do to alleviate this problem, so I've had this layer 1 UV map, and it's been laid on top of this as a sort of guide for us in 2D. Well, I turned it on and I was having trouble, having it on, and it wasn't quite showing us our normals like it should because the UV kept appearing on the 3D model. But it is nice in this case to have it on, and again, it's outside the normal folder, because now it's showing us this geometry, and if it ever sticks around, we can go into B, and I'm going to try again with making straight lines. So now, if you see, I can make straight lines down the geometry. Alright, so if I shut off painter mode, and if I do that, haha, now I have some nice straight grid lines. Actually, I like how this one turned out. I may do that for the other corners, but I have some nice straight grid lines to go on my model. And I'll let you do that on your own, because you don't want to watch me paint all those grid lines all over the place. It is kind of nice, I'll point something out, it's nice to have it on this interior detail, because that'll create a nice transition between the outer part of the metal box and the inner wood part. So that's kind of a nice detail. It's good to get separation of materials and really establish it a lot. Last thing I may want to do here is if I add a so let's add a new layer, one more new layer, and turn our UVs on again. Let's do it in 2D this time. I'm working in the multi-normal just for simplicity's sake, but I'm going to make a square or a rectangle here, and I'm going to so this is all on a new layer, and I'm going to use the fill tool, which is G, the paint bucket tool. There we go, and it's curved and slanted the way I want. So, and then I can hit Control C and then V. Now, move these around. We get a cool vent looking thing on the side. Now if I, so I did that by copying and pasting. If I take these layers, let me expand layers a little bit. So these four here, if I click the top one and then shift click the bottom, these four layers here are the ones that I just turned into these vents. If I right click and go merge layers, and again, those are just rectangles that I paint bucketed in with the marquee tool and all inside my multi-normal layer. You know, and I just created this little graphic, but if I go and look at it in 3Do and reload 3Do, and yeah, we get our this layer again. See, that's pretty cool. So now I have this vent thing, and the cool thing about doing it in multi-normal is that I can duplicate it without having to worry about destroying it or having to make the shapes in a different destructive manner. I can just copy and paste, and Endu takes care of this all for me. So I can move these around, you know, and its shading will be correct. If I had tried to do that with the regular way of making these with just a bunch of shapes, let me use my arrow keys to precisely place these. If I had just made this shape and then tried to paste it around, it actually would have been a little longer and more difficult of a process, and I may have had to do it a really troublesome, annoying way. But here, working inside my multi-normal group makes it very intuitive and simple. So it just very quickly converts it. Oh, whoops. So I'm going to open up, I'm going to reload 3Do again, and we can see that I have this elsewhere, and it looks like it is, you know, it's aligned properly. So that is Endu. I'm going to finish this up by doing the rest of this model with normals, and then we'll finish up in Dedo again and add some visual interest and some detailing to the wood paneling on the side, and then get it ready for export in Unity. Thanks for watching.